For you now, most Asian markets fell on Thursday, with investors unable to build on another record close on Wall Street. Investors instead decided to take profits after a strong week. Dealers took a step back after a healthy run this week, with Tokyo stocks ending flat, trimming earlier gains as investors locked in profits ahead of new data on the US economy. Softer Shanghai shares for the day also cooled investor spirits in the afternoon, prompting many players to take a wait-and-see stance. Tokyo's Nikkei inched up to 22,869 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dragged 1% lower to 28,159 points, while Shanghai's Composite Index dipped 1.1% to 2,737 points. Over the United States, Wall Street extended its rally on Wednesday, recording highs again for the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. It's the fourth straight session of record upticks as technology companies pushed indexes higher, and promising trade negotiations stoked investor sentiment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.25% to 26,124 points, while the S&P 500 gained 0.5% to end at 2,914 points. The Nasdaq Composite was up 1% to 8,109 points. And so now we cross over to Arabile at the JSE.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Nompu. Well, the market itself has had, 9-10 days of gains, but today, again, at this time of the day, it does seem to be headed lower. It was the same case yesterday and even on Tuesday as well. We saw it starting off midday trade, sort of in negative territory, but managing to finish off at a canter. But considering that there's been a big fall in MTN, and we'll find out exactly why in just a moment or two, that is bound to be a big hurt for the JSE All-Share. Even the Rand falling to around 14 Rand and 61 cents moments ago. With that, let's unpack the rest of the local and European markets. Record-breaking stuff out of the United States, a mixed picture out of Asia, but as you can tell, there's negativity coming out of the local market as well. Gerbrand Smith from NEFG joining us as we unpack the markets. Gerbrand, thank you so much for the time. I suppose the big issue will always be MTN, and at present, 8.1 billion being said by the Nigerian central bank that must be returned to Nigeria. How big a deal is this, considering all the other misdemeanors that MTN has been through?
Yeah, look, I think it's massive for them. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but because there was an inquiry by Parliament in Nigeria, I think in November 2017, there were actually inquiry that ended, and they were actually told that MTN were not the naughty boys at that stage. Yeah. Now they come out with a different story, and I think MTN actually received a letter yesterday that the money must be returned. What is very funny is the money must be returned to the central bank, which doesn't make sense. So as far as I know, that's actually to actually be returned to the MTN Nigeria company itself. A few banks who were fined as well, which one of them is Standard Bank South Africa or Standard Bank in Nigeria as well. Yeah. So there's a bit of a fine there. They're still querying it. I think this thing is going to go a long time on. It's unfortunate for MTN because I think they cleaned up their act. They put in new management over time, sure, and it was actually in a lot of portfolio managers' portfolios, because if you look at the cost per share as to how many subscribers they do have, it's seriously one of the cheapest shares on the local front.
Yeah, at 83 Rand and around 14 cents odd a share. It is down 22.5 cents today as well. Yeah. You say they've cleaned up their act, but a lot of people will always remember Nigeria as that market that has affected them heavily. One would say then that it becomes an accounting irregularity, which has brought them to where we currently stand, and that just brings up memories of things like KPMG as well. Is that really the case? Is it a case of they just mistakenly put out an accounting error? What actually happened for them to be in this situation?
Yeah, I'm not so sure because they're talking about the years 2007 to 2015. So there's a lot of rigmarole to get money out of some of these countries. We do business, and as far as I know, they've complied to every single rule there were. And that is what actually is very funny about it. So it almost sounds like a bit of a witch hunt that the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing at the moment. So there's a lot of irregularities in the statement as well. So only time will tell. But I mean, if you had an inquiry last year and it's been everybody's been excluded from it and said, okay, you weren't the naughty boys. Very funny to actually now come back and have a different outcome 9 months later. So let's see what comes out of it. Hopefully nothing. But certainly it's not a good thing. If MTN needs to put back that money, he doesn't have that at the moment. They'll probably have to borrow that money and pay interest on it on their side, and it should probably legally go back to MTN on that side. So it's not a fine. It's just taking your money back to that specific company where you're doing business there.
At 23% down, surely that's oversold. That's a bit too much reaction.
I would think so, but only time will tell. Because they need to pay interest on that money. Their money would be locked up in Nigeria at that moment. And the only money you can actually take back out of that country, as far as I know, is the money that you put into the infrastructure. So as far as I know and we know, they complied with that. But it's doing business in Africa does have its negatives.
And negative there as well overall on the market. Would we say that MTN is the primary cause of that?
I would say so. I think MTN, the last time I looked, is about 4% of the index. So if you hit that by 22%, it's about 80.8 down percentage-wise, and it's probably 90% of what the market's down today.
Which is actually quite on the mark there. 14.61 as well, the rand against the US dollar. Not moments ago, we're seeing the price of petrol perhaps going up again by perhaps another 25 cents. So much hurting South Africa's rand and consumers as well. Where do you see the rand also sort of faring? Where's that zone now? It's gone past 14.50 again, and it just seems to be the new normal.
Look, the funny of the currency and the local currency is that we're very volatile. 70% of the time we're not trading where we should trade. Purchasing parity, which is probably the closest that we get to what it should be, I think is around 12.50 to 12.80 a dollar at the moment. We're a bit higher than that. We were there about 2 months back, and now we're overshooting again. But if you do valuations and calculations, I think the right number to use is probably 12.80, and hopefully we'll get back to that. But there's a lot of political noise in there at the moment. There's a lot of emerging market noise in there, and there's a lot of Turkey and trade war in there as well.
What about the general market movement? What is your sense coming out of it, considering the earnings season as well, which hasn't been really the greatest locally?
No, look, the SA Inc. shares certainly has taken a beating on earnings, but I think we've probably expected that. It's not an easy economic atmosphere out there for businesses locally, but I think we're probably getting to the bottom of it. If you look long-term wise, it's been hectic in South Africa for the last 2-3 years for very reasons, but I think you're probably getting close to that. And certainly on the SA Inc. side, we're probably the cheapest some of these shares were in 5 years. So you probably should be getting optimistic on all these negative news flows coming out from a future perspective.
Gerbrand, really appreciate it. 19 rand 3 cents, 17 rand and 9 cents there against the British pound and the euro respectively. The mark just keeps getting higher and higher, the South African rand there and its trading platform at present. 14 rand and 61 against the US dollar. How much further and how much weaker can it get? Well, Gerbrand Smith is from NEFG. That's where the buck stops again this afternoon. That's your look at the markets. Nompumelelo and Nzinga will join you right after.